Everybody.
Loaded intro. Welcome to Right Reasons, episode 6.
5B.
Oh, yeah. This
5B.
is 5B.
This is episode 5B because that was the episode last night.
And also the title of this episode is What the Fuck?
Yeah. So, if you have not ever joined us before, our show is all about recapping The Bachelor through the lens of psychology, sociology, modern masculinity, healthy relationships, sex education, all while still having a lot of fun. And we truly love the show. So we're not coming from a place of like, ugh, we don't like this, so let's talk about how much we don't like it. Like we really both enjoy watching the show together. And that's why we started this podcast and show on YouTube, was to talk about something that was very produced, very typically fluffy, that some serious themes would tend to pop up in. And we wanted to give a voice to those themes and to talk about them more in depth and to talk about how communication could improve, or, you know, why certain people were doing what they were doing on the show. And this was the first episode that I actually did not want to keep watching. Had we not had this show, I would have turned off my TV.
At what point? Like 15 minutes in?
No. I'd say about halfway through.
45 minutes to an hour
Yeah,
in?
I would say about 45 minutes in, I would have turned it off.
Yeah.
And that sucks. As a Bachelor fan and somebody who has been watching the show for a really long time, that sucked. Like, I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out how we could fast forward. But I knew we couldn't fast forward because we needed to watch the whole thing for this. And that's not something that I ever have felt before.
So if you haven't seen the episode yet and you're not familiar with what's happening, the brief overview is that we got about a half an episode of actual content shown. And then the second half of the episode was a very weirdly edited together recap of everything that's led up to this point, including the majority of the first part of the episode. So the second part of the episode recapped the episode that we were watching.
And the season leading up to that episode.
But almost as much as, like,
Yeah.
the recap of the episode that we watched was almost the same length as what had led up to that point.
So before we dive into this interesting recap, if you're here live with us, or you're catching the replay, or you're listening to this as a podcast, we want to know how you feel about this too. There were a lot of things in last night's episode that were... So two different buckets. There's like the frustration just as a Bachelor fan and like, why are you showing me what I just saw
Like,
over again?
Poorly put together show.
Right, like poorly produced and
Yeah.
executed. And then there were parts of last night's show that if I had the phone number to some of the producers, I would have been making phone calls last night. There were parts of last night's show that were so irresponsible, that were, I'm sure, triggering for many people watching. And frankly, some of the commentary on the internet afterwards was even more disturbing than the show itself. So if you're here, if you're watching, if you're listening, whether it's live or not, let us know your thoughts and feelings. Say hi. Join in the discussion. This is how we learn and grow as people, is talking about stuff. So this is not just we're talking to you. We want this to be a conversation. So if you're on YouTube, chat in the comments. If you're seeing this somewhere else, chat there.
Yeah.
We found out we got put on Reddit last week. That was fun.
That was fun. Actually, it went better than I thought. It would. Just some. 'Cause Reddit can be a little strange sometimes.
We love Reddit, but
Yeah.
it's also like... It can be.
It's all the good and bad of humanity all at once.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, so does that serve? Should we trigger warning?
I mean, if they watched last night,
Around like
we're
abuse
not
and
going to
manipulate.
say
Yeah.
anything that,
You didn't see already.
yeah,
Which
the worst is over.
Which is, a whole thing. Don't mind me. I'm just turning up Rachel's volume a little bit.
Which is just horrendous.
So,
Yeah.
do you want to just dive right in? Well, so I'm personally stuck at an impasse here because I want to continue because I enjoy doing this, and I want to talk about the format of the show and the dates that we saw and how the show is going in general. At the same time, we're forced in this way to address and consistently talk about Luke P, and I don't want to do that because fuck that guy. But unfortunately, the powers that be from ABC and Warner Brothers, they want to keep him on TV and keep him around Hannah. So we're forced to continue talking about something that we don't want to talk about, which it kind of seems like Hannah is feeling like on the show because the guys want to talk about what's going on and she doesn't want to hear about it.
Which
is
I would also want to talk about what's going on if I were there.
Yeah.
Like, how else do you cope with that? You need to process. Okay, so wait, let's get in. Okay.
Let's get back to our format. We're going to start a recap based on the order of the show, and then at some point, we'll stop recapping because they stopped showing us original content. And it's halfway through. Awesome. So awesome. So awesome.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we have a lot to discuss about how Chris Harrison handled things last night. This was the first time I've ever actually been frustrated at Chris.
Also, full disclosure, there is the majority of a pint of Halo Top in our freezer, and I'm about to go throw it away after the last night's episode. Like, I'm trying to figure out if I even like it in the first place, and now, based on the way the show handles that product placement, I'm done. I'm burnt. It's so fucking over the top.
Okay. So let's get into it. So we cut back. The first shot of the episode is two of the guys sitting around talking. And again, they're just talking about how they don't want Luke P to come back to the house. And
But that they trust Hannah will send him home because she is a smart person and they respect and trust her.
Yeah.
It's nice to know some of them do.
It cuts to Hannah, and it's exactly where we left off from last week, which was appreciated. I'm glad they didn't skip forward and then try to have us fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Which is what happened later. So she says, I can't give you this rose. And Luke responds with, I'm so confused, which no, he's not. He knows exactly what's going on.
She spent an hour explaining it to him.
So she explains herself, essentially saying that she was in the most beautiful place she had ever been in. And he's like, I know, me too.
So beautiful.
And
it's not really what she's...
That she was not even happy being there.
Yeah.
And he basically parrots what she says. And he says to her, please think about everything that we've talked about tonight and everything from day one, every little detail. And she says back to him, I am thinking about every little detail. And in this moment, I was so proud of her. And honestly, through most of the episode, through all of this, I have so much empathy for her. And that's something that we're going to talk about later is people who are blaming Hannah for some of this and why that's not okay.
Yeah.
But in this moment, she had this clarity around letting him go that was, as a viewer and as a therapist, I was like, yes, keep going, stand your ground, you've got this.
So I noticed during this time when she's talking to him and really just kind of laying into him a little bit about how she's unable to have fun around him on group dates, on one-on-ones. He's poisoning her time on the show. And his face does this thing where it's like he's acting the emotion. It's like, okay, so she's upset at me, so I need to feel remorse and then also be sad. And then he takes a second, you watch him kind of blank face. Oh, now I'm remorseful and sad. It's this weird, the robot comment that she makes, she's very astute to catch that because that's what I was saying on the couch. So he does the thing that people do, often men, when they don't want to have the conversation anymore. They just want to go back to when things were fun. He says, oh, you know what? I realize this now. Everything is my fault. I own it. Now, let's just move on. And she's like, no, bro. I'm upset. You're ruining my dating experience on the dating show that I'm on. And so he asks, well, does this mean that I'm going home tonight? Because she says, I can't give you this rose. And she says, yes. And please respect that. Then they hug. He leaves. I feel the one and only faint glimmer of hope for this entire episode in this moment.
I was watching this like he's going to fucking
knew.
turn around.
You knew, yeah.
So this is what this really bothered me. So he in the moment said, I didn't ever think this was going to happen to me, but here I am. I care about her so much. I don't want to go home. Literally like 24 hours ago from this, he had said when he got the date card, I need to figure out how I feel about Hannah and if I want to stay.
He said that on TV. It's recorded. He can't argue that.
Documented. Like, not an edit that was fed to us, not a narrative.
In front of all the guys, too.
Yes. So he says, nothing is going to clutter or cloud my mind besides pursuing Hannah. I see her, and I'm like, yes, that's what I want.
Which is great. I think that when I see food sometimes.
And me.
I think, and I also, Rachel. But that's also the way I describe food, not a person capable of making their own decisions.
Yeah.
So she asks him, when he leaves, to respect what she said. And he immediately disrespects her openly by turning around and refusing to go. And then just babbles some conversational argument. He's like, I'm sorry, in these like 900 ways. And this is a classic example of toxic masculinity. Because she said, respect this. And then he didn't. And then continued to explain why he was right and she wasn't. And why he needed to be there because he cares about her. At no point does he say anything about her feelings for him. It's his feelings for the object the whole time.
Yeah, he does not take into consideration how she feels for 1 second. Not one. And he comes back. She says, God. What are you doing? He does this bizarre...
babbly.
Like, you're right. I've been trying to be perfect. Watch, come here, come over here. And then he steps over and he like does this fake yelling thing.
Well, he's like, I want to scream. And she's like, so do it.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay. And so he steps away from her.
And he's like, I feel like you get to see me right now for real.
And he talks loudly. He does not scream. You got a microphone on you, man. You're talking loud. Like, that's not... It's not any... It was so weird.
It was so bizarre and so performative. It was so performative. And...
Then he says... Oh, do you want to...
Go ahead.
And then, so she's just sort of listening, and she looks exhausted and frustrated. She kind of looks exhausted and frustrated the entirety of the episode.
Yeah.
He says, I genuinely want to marry you.
Oh, no. Wait. Pause.
Okay.
There was something before. So she says, sorry.
It's okay.
She says, this is still bothering me. And it's like she's still on the course to send him home. Like she's still going forward. And he says, this all didn't hit me until tonight. Now I understand, which let's put this into real life constructs. I think we have almost all been in a relationship or have known someone in a relationship. I can think of like 4 people right now who have been in a relationship where it comes time to part ways. And that is when this, oh my gosh, now I understand suddenly what you've been saying for the past X amount of time. Maybe it's months or years. In this case, it's weeks. Like I suddenly understand what's going on. Now it will be different. And it's this manipulative, now I can change. Now I understand. Dude, nothing changed from the time that you were on that bluff during the day till now. It did not change. And I think that at this point, so he does say, I genuinely want to marry you, which again, 12 hours ago, he was like, I don't know if I even want to stay. I got to figure out how I feel about her.
I don't think he's ever been genuine about anything.
We need to discuss the difference because this came up. When I heard him say, I'm going after a girl, like I'm going after my girl, it reminded me of Colton.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought was, oh no. Everyone in the media is going to start comparing what Luke is doing to what Colton did with Cassie. And I think it's really important. I don't want to spend too long on this, but I think it's really important that we discuss the difference between Colton and Cassie and what Luke is doing with Hannah.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay, so what comes to mind for you first as the major differences?
Well, first, the position that they're both in. Colton was the Bachelor, and he was currently dating a series of women and figured out which one that he wanted to be with, and she had reservations around the way the show was structured and the results that were going to be given. She's like, I don't know if I want to be married, but I like you, so it's confusing, but you're like really horny for marriage, so I'm a little hands off right now. I don't know if I want that. And once they found the understanding, them actually getting to sit down and say what they meant, that was the problem of Colton and Cassie. Because neither of them was very good at talking or using proper descriptors, actually saying what they felt or wanted. They were just sort of talking at each other for a while. Once they finally connected, I don't know why I keep doing this with my hands. Once they finally connected,
a lot.
It's called tributism, I learned.
I know. It's true. Fun fact.
It's a whole other story.
Different episode.
Once Colton and Cassie were able to communicate with each other, he's like, I just want to be with you. She's like, I don't want to get married yet. And he's like, no, that's cool. I want to be with you and figure it out. And she's like, oh, you just said married a lot when we were on the show. And now I get it. And there's the difference, because he knew that he wanted to be with Cassie. And he also was aware that she would like to be with him had the pressure of marriage not been on the table. And so once they were able to figure that out, I don't think that he handled it the best. I also think that he handled it the best for how he could at the time. I understand it as much as I can from a reality person on TV. Sure.
Right.
This is not that. Luke P is not allowing Hannah to even say that she wants to be with him in life. She has never said those words. We saw in this episode later on, she says that if Luke can get his shit together, I'm open to giving him roses as long as he keeps growing and growing. Sure, whatever. She hasn't said that to him, as far as we know. And he is just asserting that what he knows, his feelings that are 100% true for him, is that he's the one for her, she's the one for him, no one else matters, including her own opinion. That's my soapbox monologue.
No, that was beautifully said.
I would drop the mics if they were not ours and not cheap.
That was beautifully said. I think two other key differences to note is, number one, when Colton went, quote unquote, after Cassie, it was at the end of the show. There were two other women left. They had had a lot of time together, and the relationship had developed to a point where, like you were saying, they had conversations about what that future would look like. Their relationship had far more depth because, not to say it was deep, okay, like still on The Bachelor, still within a time frame.
Moderate depth.
More deep than this, okay? Yeah. So that's another differentiator. The other key differentiator is neither Colton nor Cassie is an abuser and used tactics like gaslighting and lying to manipulate situations to get what they wanted. Now, if they did those things, it was not aired on camera. We had no idea, and we haven't seen it since. Luke he is willing to do whatever it takes to win her, including lying to other people, lying to Hannah, manipulating other people, gaslighting Hannah, forcing her. The tactics that Luke is taking are very unhealthy. Colton was like, I'm going to chase after the girl I love and tell her how I feel, and I'll be patient with her until she figures out how she feels. He wasn't like, I'm not leaving and I'm going to lie to everybody around me so that you think I'm awesome.
Luke is treating Hannah as if they've done the entire season already and it's the final two, and he's like, no, but I know it's you and me are supposed to be the ones. He's been acting like that since day one.
Yeah.
And it's been affecting everything that Hannah does. He is inserting himself into every possible part of her relationship, time, efforts on the show. He is a constant source of frustration and a common topic of conversation for all the guys because he is doing whatever he can to be. It's like, seen the show Criminal Minds? They always talk about how, like, the psychopath always inserts himself into the investigation because he gets off on being a part of the whole thing.
That's what he's doing.
It's a little like that. When I say a little, it's exactly like that.
Yeah. No, it's exactly like that. And this is where my issue comes in, and we can talk more about it when we talk about Chris Harrison, but this is where my issue comes in with Luke P even being cast on the show, but more so them not encouraging her to send him home. So I understand that during a casting process, you may not see this side of a person. Like, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Now, from what I do understand, they go through psychological evaluations, which if he went through a true psych eval, unless he lied his way through it, which most trained therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists would be able to catch the lying. A good assessment has measures to catch people lying. That's why it's an assessment. But with him, they allowed him on the show, and they are encouraging her multiple times to keep him on the show. He is emotionally and psychologically abusing Hannah. And when the guys are trying to stand up and say something, it's making them look like the asshole.
Production is helping Hannah they're basically pitting Hannah, Luke, and production versus the rest of the guys. Because they keep saying, well, from what we've seen producers say, it just takes time, it's just a lot of understanding's got to get done, maybe more time will tell.
And then like what Chris said when he goes, oh, the guys are just all upset because they all like you a lot. He loves you so much that he was so angry that you went out with your friends. He loves you so much that he's trying to keep you isolated from all the other people.
There's a lot of the things that you stereotypically hear from abuse victims said are actually said in this episode. And so
she even starts thinking things are her fault.
Right. So we'll get into this slowly but surely. All right. So
guys, okay.
I did write down before the first commercial break, if she falls for this shit, him telling her that he wants to marry her, if she falls for this shit, I give up. I start doing shots before we watch any more episodes.
But
I might do that.
But okay, I love you. I'm going to call you out a little.
What?
That right there is part of the problem. Not with the show, with the societal dialogue around the show. She's not falling for something.
Oh, yeah. That's good, yeah.
He is not like...
Maybe instead of falling for, if she actually listens and continues to have him on the show.
But I don't... It's not that she believes everything he's saying.
Right. I think that she's hearing it from multiple sources. My issue with this, I think that she is almost blameless in the majority of the Luke P issue, right? I think my one issue is that at multiple points of tonight's episode and in previous episodes and teasers for the rest of the season, she keeps coming back to, I am my own woman, I am strong, I will make my own decisions, and yet you can see the producer, little devil on her shoulder, being like, well, how about this? And so I feel like a lot of her decisions aren't really hers at the core.
I 100% agree with you.
Right.
But when you're in that
you can't blame,
ecosystem, you're in an echo chamber of you don't have contact with anybody else outside of that world. So what the producers start wanting you to do, along with this guy who you had the most connection with on night one, those line up, and then the rest of the guys don't like him. It reminds me of Ben Flajnik's season. The women didn't like Courtney Robertson. Well, she ended up, quote unquote, winning the show. And yes, she was rude to the other women, but a lot of the women didn't like her because she was the front runner.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure in Hannah's head, and perhaps the production team has said this, oh, the other guys are just jealous of Luke P because you have such a strong connection with him. And that's why they're talking about him to you. If you put it in that lens, and then you start thinking, okay, well, I have the strongest connection with him. Maybe these guys are all just saying this because they're jealous. The producers aren't telling me that anything is wrong. Okay, well, I'll give him another chance. Because she's being manipulated and abused by him on national television. That was, I cannot believe that I was sitting watching the definition of abuse happen on The Bachelorette, on primetime TV.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So, that's the issue with this entire episode. The first half of it is just this issue. Because at this point, the guys are all wondering, what's happening? Why is this person still there? When he has lied to all of them and Hannah in group settings multiple times, and they're like, what? They all want to put their trust in her. I think they're having a hard time doing it now.
And I get that. I get that from the outside looking in, it would be hard because you're seeing this person who's clearly a tool and an abuser and a horrible guy, and she's consistently giving him other chances when you don't understand what's happening between the two of them and then the production interventions in between, you're going to not trust her. And I get that.
And that's the issue that we...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that's the issue that we've been noticing this entire season so far, and in this episode particularly. We've seen more production talking to Hannah than I've ever seen. I mean, I haven't seen as much Bachelor, and I can never see as much Bachelor as Rachel has.
I mean, you could. It would just take a lot of days.
Becca's season, Colton's season, there were plenty of production, like stepping in, saying things, but they are always there. She is always talking off camera to someone, and they're not helping. They're placating her so she'll keep Luke on longer. They're giving her these very open-ended, like, well, we'll just have to see. It'll just take time. Maybe you'll see something. Maybe it won't. Maybe the guys. Like, they're leaving all of this so vague. It's got to be so confusing for her to actually figure out who's on her side.
Right. And that's part of the problem. So two comments, and then we'll go to the commercial and cut back to Luke going to church. The first thing is there's a therapist on set.
Yeah.
I do not understand for the life of me how this therapist is not, and I'm not blaming the therapist. I have no idea how this is actually set up, what the producers have to, like, I have no idea the setup. All I know is that there is a therapist on set.
Yeah.
Either she or he is not being utilized, or she or he is not seeing the footage and just hearing things from Hannah. And either way, it is ridiculously irresponsible.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think that the therapist is in on it with production?
Oh God, I hope not. That would make me like throw up.
Compromise of value. I mean, I don't know, And so here's my issue with the whole situation. With the therapist, now that you mentioned that, included. The internet got all up in arms around Becca's season when they had Lincoln on there, who had been, he's in litigation, court proceedings.
He was
for
in the middle
assault.
of a court case that had not been put on his record yet.
Right. So, but for assaulting a woman on a cruise. And the internet exploded. You put her alone in a room with someone who assaulted a woman. You're putting her in danger.
Rightfully so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. However, when someone has demonstrated all of the characteristics besides actual physical violence of being an abusive person, in my opinion, you're putting Hannah in just as much danger by encouraging her to bring Luke farther onto the show.
Yep.
Because if she marries this guy, who's to say what will happen? But I'm guessing it's not going to be fun for her.
Well, and he has demonstrated physical violence, just not towards her. The way that he handled the whole Luke S. thing on the rugby field, that was over the top aggression.
I'm glad they actually showed the recap of that because I hadn't seen it since the first showing.
That was
everyone's eyes are following the rest of the men who are way downfield. And then off to the left, you see Luke just tackle the other one hard. It's a lift and tackle.
Yeah, he
full
slams
back contact
him to
on the ground. So why were they by themselves? Why did he body slam him like that? And why was no one paying attention to it? It just adds more to the fact that Luke P is an abusive piece of shit.
So my other point, besides the therapist being on set and that being very confusing to understand how that's working, this is why we need to educate in school about what emotional and psychological abuse looks like. We talked a little bit last week on the episode about my old therapist who wrote the book, but he didn't hit me, but he never hit me, because a lot of people, myself included, if I had not had education in a master's program, don't understand what emotional abuse is.
Yeah.
So when somebody is gaslighting, people think that that's a newer term because it is talked about more in 2019 than it was 10, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago.
Right.
But that's because it's being brought to light. That's because people are learning what it is. And if we had education in school that addressed what this type of abuse looked like, it would prevent things like this from happening. I'm looking towards our TV again. There is nothing wrong with produced drama on these shows. I get it. Create fucking guys being ridiculous and competitive at like chicken in the pool or, skiing or whatever. Pin the women against even like this anti-feminist women on women bullshit that they do sometimes. Cool, whatever. It gets you ratings. It works for the show. I get it. It's produced. It's a TV show. I understand. But there is a line where it crosses from drama into putting, like you said, putting somebody in danger. And she is going through, you can see it. She's sitting there crying, confused, isolated, doesn't want to move forward. Her balloon is completely deflated.
Yeah, she looks miserable.
That is what happens when you are in a relationship or dating somebody like Luke.
Yep.
Now, could Luke get help? Yes, he could.
Does he think anything's wrong? No.
And that's the problem. Okay. Wow. Let's continue.
So we haven't actually seen anything on the show yet, blah, blah, blah. See, this is the problem, is that recapping this episode feels pointless.
Well, okay, and I felt the same way, but here's the one positive of all of this.
Peter. No?
I do love Peter. And Tyler. And Jed. And Mike.
And my boy Grant.
No. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
Okay.
You got done dirty.
So the positive about recapping this episode is, A, we get to see the character of the other men come out a bit. B, we're able to talk about something that maybe some people don't know about. So if this can help save somebody in an abusive relationship, great.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't on TV.
Also that.
So we cut back after the second commercial, and Luke is going to church to pray, which is really interesting. How the hell did he get a camera crew by himself on a filming day? I don't understand that. So he goes, and all the guys are getting ready for the cocktail party. Tyler looks super hot, as per the usual.
Yeah, they're all speaking very confidently. Like they understand that Hannah has her own thing, and they're respect. Here's the best part: all the guys are respecting Hannah's decision, and they're like, "We don't like it, but it's her choice, so okay." That's a good group of dudes, in general. So they're all kind of talking about it a little bit. They're all sharing their concerns. Peter feels really good about Hannah because they had a magical time on a mountain. Actual quote.
No, in the castle.
Oh, in the castle. That's right.
Yeah.
Makes it better.
Yeah. The one thing that we didn't mention, which we don't need to get into because I feel like I heard about it enough on the episode last night, and you guys probably did too if you were watching, is the whole Garrett-Luke conversation when Luke comes home from the date of, did you say anything about anybody? He says no, but he did. That blows up later. We don't need to get into it. We all saw what happened.
I do enjoy Garrett's demeanor
Yeah, but he
well, so
crossed a line last night.
He gets
Okay, let's wait.
Mike
Okay.
compliments Hannah again.
So Hannah walks in. She looks fucking stunning.
And Mike says it.
Stunning.
that.
White dress. That white dress.
I think he just says, like, Mike just goes, you know you look good in that.
Yes.
Like,
yes. And I love her, like, coat shoulder thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's, like, clearly a female coat, but she's wearing
hot.
it like she took her boyfriend's suit jacket. It
Yeah.
was really cute.
She looks good.
And she talks about, I actually really liked this. I'm not religious. I'm a very spiritual person. I recognize that The Bachelor has a lot of roots in Christianity. There's a lot of contestants and
Majority
viewers.
of fan base, I think.
Yeah. But they typically talk about it as like quote unquote matching values, which could literally mean anything. And doesn't mean religion.
Right.
And so Hannah talks about, she says that the Lord placed a verse on her heart. And the way that she interpreted it is, don't focus on the seen, but the unseen. She says, I want to know what is hard to share for you. I want to know what makes you you. And to do that, I need to do that and give that in return. So cheers to being comfortable sharing the uncomfortable. And I loved this.
Yeah.
I thought it was a beautiful acknowledgement of her faith, what she stands for. She didn't just drop a Bible verse. She said what it meant to her,
right.
which is really like the whole point.
It's to interpret, yeah.
And I loved that she set the intention for the evening and really wanted to hear from these guys deeper shit.
Yeah, she wants to know their struggles. She wants to know what they want to do, where they want to go, what the difficulties are, how they've struggled to get where they are now. It's great. And so as soon as she says that, Garrett's like, hey, can I talk to you first? And so they do. And
then I said I wanted to blot Garrett's forehead with an oil strip.
It was sweaty. Yeah, they were sweaty.
No, it wasn't sweaty. It was oily. You know those like blue Neutrogena things
Little wipies.
where you like blot and it like comes off and there's oil on it. I wanted to like reach through the screen and just blot him.
That makes sense.
Anyway.
So she tells him that she's really enjoying being around him and wants to pursue their relationship. And, she asks him more about like, how'd you get here? What are your struggles? Blah, blah, blah. And Garrett starts talking about Luke instead of being open with her and listening to what she said. And
this was
bad move, Garrett. Yeah, really not swing and a miss. I wrote down, dude, not the right time. Didn't you hear what she said? She's literally telling you what she wants, and you can't even do that because she asked you to get deep and to share your struggles, and instead you're talking about Luke. However, something gets to her when he says this because he's getting really caught up, and he's like, so here, I understand what you want, but we asked Luke not to lie, and I think that he's lying right now to both of us. What exactly did he say? And this is an issue because at first she's like, because the idea is that Garrett asked Luke, don't say anyone's names when you're on the date. Just you go on your one-on-one and leave us out of it. I think it's a fair thing to say. I don't like the way he said it. I think he said like be a man or something, which is confusing because I don't know what that means. I say that as a man.
But
confused.
like the concept of not talking about the other guys is
no,
fine.
that I get.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the weird be a man thing.
No,
Still don't understand that.
No.
Anyway, and so she's like, yeah, because Luke says I didn't say any of your names. And then she says, when she's talking to Garrett, well, she kind of goes back and forth. She's like, well, I guess he did talk about Mike and Dylan.
And then
and
she
Devin,
says the thing that made me want to crawl into my face.
And then she says, oh, you know what, though? That's my fault. I prompted that. I created the environment for him to say that.
She said, I provoked him.
That's literally what people say when they're being abused. That's like a
textbook.
Out of a textbook, out of, I don't know, pick any TV show where there's been abuse.
I provoked it. It was my fault.
Like,
Hannah, it's not your fault.
He is contrary to what the situation is being presented as, Luke can just not say or say whatever he wants to say or not say. It's this weird thing that our brains do where we have complete control over our actions almost all the time. And she is taking responsibility for the things that he has done and the lies that he has told which is not her fault. Or like, what?
So this was the first moment, I know for me, where I was like, oh, she not only is like in it, but she's like
She's
it.
in
like
it.
She has been completely swept up and caught up in his stuff.
And she is actively defending this person that she
Yeah.
wanted to send home, actually did tell him to leave the show, and now defending him to other guys when they're like, hey, just so you know, real quick, he's lying to you and me. And she's like, no, but it's my fault he's lying, so it's okay then.
So Connor comes over and steals Hannah from Garrett right as they're like kissing. It was awkward and funny. They made it cute. It was funny.
An appreciated moment of levity.
Yes.
In this fucking nightmare of an episode.
Honestly, any moment of levity, I was like, ha ha ha! Like I just needed to laugh. All I wanted
Like with
was
Peter.
like, yes. All I wanted was I feel like I need to watch a Disney movie or something.
You can do that later.
Like, clean my brain out. This was honestly like, you guys, I see clients 4 days out of the week. Watching this show last night was harder for me emotionally than any of my client sessions the past like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating. Okay, so Connor takes Hannah, and this is when the episode really takes a turn where it does not come back from this.
No.
So Connor takes Hannah, they're talking in the hallway, and she starts to hear.
Well, there's a lead into this.
I know. She starts to hear the argument that has started between Garrett, Luke, and most
Everyone.
of the other guys. No.
Okay, not all of them.
Jed and Peter and Tyler did not say boo. Actually,
And
Mike
Mike.
didn't say anything.
Mike was smiling the whole
Those
time.
4 guys, and you can tell those right
They
now,
know.
those are going to be her top 4. They stayed out of it in a way that it was very, they knew that by that point there was no use, and they just stopped. They stopped. And
Right.
I respected that. I also respected what Garrett was trying to do.
So,
He
yeah,
just did it in a poor way.
After Connor takes Hannah away, he goes right into the room and just lays into Luke. And he basically says everything. He's like, hey, so remember when you said the thing? We weren't going to lie? So it turns out you were lying. And you said Mike's name and Dylan and Devin's name. And Dylan is sitting on the couch with, this is my favorite moment of the show, is Grant, Dylan, and Devin are sitting on the couch together. And very much out of like Kaneki from Greece, Dylan is like leaning on Grant. And he's like, what'd you say?
It was like a
What'd you
tell
say
me
about
more,
us?
tell me
Come
more.
on.
Uh-oh,
Because
those
they can't.
summer nights.
They're so fed up. At the same time, they want to make it like a lighthearted thing because they're just so done with them. And all of the guys, Garrett does get a little aggressively confrontational at certain points with raising his voice and being confrontational. However,
But that
I do
wasn't the issue.
appreciate. You're right, but I do appreciate the way the men treat Luke because they're like, "Hey, you're lying," and he starts talking. They're like, "But you're still lying."
Yeah.
When the lies stop, you can talk. And then he just lies some more, and they're like, dude, Garrett actually shouts, no one believes you. When Luke is trying to do that fast lying thing where it's a different story for every person.
He's gaslighting them. That was like textbook gaslighting.
Yeah.
And what I was telling you, Kyle, this morning is like, okay, so let's say every day we wake up and the walls in here, you can't, okay, let's use this backdrop. Okay, so every day we wake up and Kyle tells me, wow, babe, I love this yellow backdrop. And I'm like, babe, it's white. And he says, no, it's yellow. And every day he says, wow, I love this yellow backdrop. And I have no contact with anybody else, okay, in this example.
Like no one comes over to our apartment to
Eventually,
understand that.
I'm going to start questioning myself and being like, is it yellow?
You
Like,
colorblind?
is it faded? Are my eyes fucked up? Like, it is white, right? Like, what he says it's yellow, and what? That's what's going on. So this is where Hannah asks Connor for a moment. She walks upstairs. She chugs down her champagne.
Talks to producers.
Talks to a producer, which
I don't know what
Again,
they talked about.
maybe they could have helped her out instead of just focusing on making a fucking television show. Because honestly, it would have been just as good TV. In fact, better TV if she bitched Luke P out and was like, you are abusing me. You're manipulating me. You're using tactics like gaslighting. Could you imagine if she just lit him up on national television? That would be better TV. Why can't the producers help her do that instead of keeping him around?
Instead of finding this narrative that she's somehow making her own decisions and that's female empowerment, instead of blowing up a gaslighter and abuser on national TV and sending his ass home, which, just want to remind everyone, she already tried to do in this episode.
And he came back.
Still the same episode.
Yeah.
And producers let him, and she was manipulated into being okay with it. Awesome.
I'm sweating. This is like it.
She is like, okay, everyone, you're all bickering. All the guys say you don't like Luke. Luke says all the guys are just jealous. Let's talk it out openly. And at this point, I'm like, all right, she's going to make them all talk like children. And this is going to be fantastic because then we're all getting the same story. So Devin's like, okay, so my first thing, Luke interrupts him. And then Hannah has to facilitate the conversation, and she's so emotionally drained. You can see she's so exhausted. Every time someone tries to talk, Luke interrupts because he is trying to maintain his narrative that he's right. At this point, Garrett does do a good job because he sees what he's good at reading the room.
Yeah.
He sees Hannah's furious. He sees the guys are all up in arms, and he also knows that he's part of the problem at this point. And there's about a 2-minute segment of the episode where Hannah and Garrett talk to all of the guys like they are their parents. And I think that's why Garrett may go to the end, because she and him, while he is not the best sometimes, he also has that super masculine confidence that Hannah has been outspoken about liking. So
he's also gentle. Like
he's not getting angry at the guys. He's like, hey, so we're all fucking this up.
Yeah.
Stop fucking this up. I'm going to do my best, but this is not working for anyone, especially the one person we're supposed to be here for.
So she tells everybody to just stay in their lanes.
They say right reasons. Thank you.
She tells everybody to stay in their lanes, which I understand from her point of view why she's saying that. From their point of view, they're trying to help her. But from her point of view, she doesn't think she needs to be helped. And so it plays to this awkward narrative of, yes, we want women to be empowered. Yes, she can make her own decisions. We also, part of feeling empowered is being empowered to accept help. It is not strong to not accept help. And I think that that's something for men and women that's hard to understand, that being vulnerable and asking for help is sometimes the strongest thing that you can do.
Yeah, big time.
But our culture has set up this idea that being strong is not accepting help, is doing it on your own. Well, why? Why is that smart and strong? Accept help. So I get why she's saying that. I understand where she's coming from, and I also understand where the guys are coming from.
Well, it's like that thing where if 100 people tell you to jump off a bridge, will you jump off a bridge? No, of course not. But if 100 people are telling you to eat spinach because it's healthy for you, maybe take their advice. In this case, when all of the guys in the room, except for one, are saying the one guy's a piece of shit and lying to you, maybe they're telling the truth.
It's just really hard. So what really drove me nuts was we go to commercial and we come back. The guys are talking. Garrett apologizes.
Hold on. There's one more thing. Peter drops the hammer on the men.
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
Was that after? Did I not write down commercial?
Maybe. I don't know. It all happened so congested. But let me just get this sentence out. So Luke says, you know what, man? Thank you so much for that apology. I really appreciate that apology because I had things to tell Hannah tonight and Hannah had things to tell me. So, like, I really appreciate your apology. Makes it only about him. And then when someone else starts talking, Luke uses Hannah's line and says, let's just stay in our own lanes. And at that point, I tossed my phone onto the table and I sat back on the couch like this.
Yeah, she's done.
And I believe that's when Peter said what he said.
So there's two things. There's a part in between that's after this segment.
See, maybe I didn't write it down because I tossed my phone on the table.
I believe it was the phone tossing. No, it's before Garrett apologizes to everybody. So she leaves. Right, Hannah's frustrated. She leaves before the apology.
Yes, you're right. Sorry,
and
guys.
Peter, just the most sensitive, sweet guy on the show.
Peter.
He's got like tears in his eyes, and he's like, all of you guys are fucking this up for me because I wanted to have a deep conversation.
He didn't even say for me.
No,
he
he's
said
in
you're
general.
just fucking this up, which again is like he's thinking of Hannah.
Yeah, he's like, I like really needed to talk. Like, we have some big stuff, and all you're doing is making this worse for everyone in this room. And I think Peter's one of the younger guys too, and he just drops the hammer on him, which was great. Then there's the apology. They'll go back and forth, and
that's when Chris Harrison first enters, is when Hannah walks off and Chris says to her, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Everything."
Right before that, she does come back into the room and butchers the men.
Yeah.
For not making her a priority. She's like, hey, do you remember what I said at the beginning of this? None of that's happening.
Oh.
You're all fault.
That's when she said the line, which I didn't write down because I was fuming.
Mm-hmm.
She said something along the lines of, "You don't even know why I'm here. You know nothing
Right.
about me because all we're talking about is stupid shit."
And then she walks out.
Which was, honestly,
It was good.
I was like, standing ovation,
I was
Hannah.
like, yeah.
That was, and I'm glad. Here's the issue. Luke P. does not think that she's talking to him.
No, 100%.
In his mind, she's telling everybody else that, and he is exempt from that.
Mm-hmm.
Where in reality, she is including him. In fact, she's probably not including Jed, Peter, Tyler, and Mike, who have not said anything
Not a word.
while she's been in the room at all. So that's part of the issue, too, is that when she's addressing the group, he's not taking it as himself. He's not understanding that she is also talking to him, that he is part of this problem. He's like, well, I'm good because I'm her final one.
Yeah.
We're fine.
To back that up, before they go to the rose ceremony, because the party is 100% over at this point, Luke has a little in the moment where he says, it's all Garrett's fault.
He says, quote, "This is 100% Garrett's fault." That's when I went, ha! Remember?
Like, nothing's 100%. Absolutes are pretty hard to find in this world.
Also, definitely not 100% Garrett's fault.
Sounds
Did Garrett
good to say that to yourself, though.
Did he have something to do with it? Yeah, he definitely instigated and did not handle himself as well as he could have.
Garrett has 8% of responsibility here. Some, but not a lot.
Okay, so
Rose
it's
ceremony
rose
time.
ceremony time. Mike and Jed already have roses.
Mike and Jed.
The people who get roses, so, okay.
Ugh.
Mike and Jed.
This is the hardest part.
I know.
Well, no,
Okay.
this is by far not the hardest
No.
part of the episode for me at all.
Mike and
but
Jed-
I am sad. Okay. Connor gets a rose.
Wait,
Oh.
Mike and Jed.
Oh, okay.
Connor.
Right. Tyler.
Yay, Tyler.
Dustin, who we have not seen a lot of yet, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Saw him a little bit, but we haven't seen a lot. But Dustin. Peter, of course.
Pilot Pete.
Dylan.
Dylan.
Kanicki. Garrett.
Garrett.
And Luke.
And
There's the wrong amount of flowers left.
no, these are all the flowers that
Oh.
were left. I just had them off of the shelf to view.
So, who goes home but Devin, Kevin, and Grant?
Yep.
Now, Kevin, he got hurt on the one date, didn't get a lot of time. He's a behavioral therapist,
He's
which
going
is
to paradise.
which is we found he's going to paradise. Good for him. Devin, he was playing too much into the Luke stuff without having a strong enough connection with her, so he sent himself home in
It's
a lot
like
of
Luke
ways.
S. Like, same idea.
And then Grant, I don't know anything about you. They don't tell us anything about you. You're apparently unemployed, live in San Clemente, which could also mean that you're like super rich and just live by the beach and no one cares.
In
like,
my head, I was like, I went on dates with guys like you when I lived in Orange County.
he
like,
just seemed like he was
no.
having a good time.
Ugh.
When he goes say goodbye, he's like, hey, great job. I hope things are good for you. I'm feeling good. I'm going like.
You made the joke when he walks up to her at the rose ceremony. He's like, hey. And Kyle goes, hi, I'm Grant.
The way he said, hey, he's like, hey.
Because like
I'm
it
Grant.
seemed like they'd never met before, ever.
Did you see the two of them talk at any point on the show?
Maybe once.
I don't think I saw him.
And my narrative was like, thanks for the trip to Scotland. So Hannah, instead of making like the toast and everybody being like, yay, next, we're going to Thailand or whatever.
She's done.
She's like, I want the drama gone. She says, now we talk. And she basically gives them a spiel about how she wants the drama gone. And here's the issue. And this is where it is so evident how blind she is, how blinded she has become to this. She wants the drama gone. That's all she wants. She keeps saying it over and over and over again. But her behavior, her choices are keeping the one person who is creating the drama. But that is not her fault. Because like the analogy I was using earlier, if I thought that this was yellow, if I had been brainwashed and manipulated into thinking this was yellow, I am going to decorate the rest of the room for a yellow wall, not a white wall. So you make choices based on the reality that you have in your mind. That's why sometimes when somebody makes a weird decision, you're like, why did they do that? Well, from their perception, it might have been the best one. Yeah. So it was really hard to watch this. And then they travel to Latvia.
Right before that, I for some reason wrote down Peter is into her controlling the room. I think her and a leadership thing kind of turns Peter on. He had a quick little interview thing where he was like, and she was just telling us. And I was like, you're probably a little turned on by that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they go to Latvia.
They're cute together.
I didn't check the facts on this, which now I'm kind of regretting, but I believe if you're a Marvel fan, that is the home country of Doctor Doom, which is a villain in the Marvel Universe, Latvia. Small fun fact for you.
I don't know.
That's okay. No one does because the Fantastic Four movies were not fantastic. Anyway. All the guys want to move forward. They're all talking about how we're going to move forward from the persistent problem that came along with us, but we're going to move forward somehow in some way. And then we get into this really, so this begins something about this. I feel like we're not hearing the whole story. Something is going on. Something inside of Hannah wants to come out, and we don't know what it is. Because she sits down with Chris Harrison to have coffee and talk out how she's feeling on the show. In Latvia. They're still in Latvia. And she's having a really hard time connecting with everybody. She's like sharing, like, I'm having a hard time finding connections. Everyone's frustrated at Luke. This is a constant issue. I just want to move on. I want to do this. And she keeps being very vague, and they edit the shots of her talking about something a lot. It's very vague that she wants to be honest with the guy. She's been waiting to be honest. She wants to share something. No one's asked her about herself. There's something there that she wants to be open about that she's not had the ability to, and yet is also very nervous to do. So I have no idea what it is, but something, my internal little, I don't know, something's up. Something's up, and I don't know what it is, and it's making me uncomfortable.
Well, and she talked about how she doesn't trust them right now, which I totally get.
Right.
It's very unstable.
Well, because when you can't trust anything anyone's doing because one person is openly manipulating you, who's being backed by the producers to keep TV, I would be a little confused about who's telling the truth also.
So he says, it seems like it feels heavy. And she says, yeah, it is. I feel like I'm flailing.
She says she's trying so hard.
And then she says, I don't know how this works for people. Which is a really interesting statement.
Do you think that she meant dating, like relationships, or the show format?
The show. Which is why I think that we got a weird edit of this interview in LA. Okay, so I've heard two theories on this interview. I want to present them to you guys, and I would love to hear from you which one you think it is.
Yeah.
On Ali Fidotowski's blog, she said that she thinks that they filmed that interview in LA, not the one in Latvia, the one at the mansion, after the whole show was done. And that she is probably engaged and had to kind of talk about it as if it was happening then, kind of like an in the moment where you're like, then I felt excited because I was good, but it's like about 4 days ago.
Yeah.
That's what Ali said on her blog. Juliette Littman was mentioning that they go home to LA for the rose ceremony after hometown dates every year, which I forgot about. She's correct. That rose ceremony happens in LA. So Juliette thinks that it was later, but it was not at the end. She thinks it was filmed before the end. So like when he said, you know, some of the questions that he asked and she was answering them. However, that then calls into question the timing of the preview that we saw. I'm going to jump ahead for a second.
Very bad timeline attention to detail in this episode. Very confusing.
Yeah, it was very confusing. But to jump ahead, we see that the person who Hannah is yelling at, saying about sex and how she's had sex with somebody and Jesus still loves her, which is quite possibly like one of the best lines
best thing
ever.
She said.
I'm excited to watch that happen.
Jesus still loves me.
However, if she had already experienced that moment with Luke P. Okay, so let's say she had already experienced this moment where he says something horrible to her. She sends him home in a black car and she flips him off, which they showed in the preview. How could she then sit there and say with a shit-eating grin on her face that he is the best kisser there?
It's a good question.
So that calls into question, when does that interaction happen? And in real life, did it happen before or after that interview was filmed? So I would love to know what you guys think.
I have no idea.
Because we know that they didn't fly from Latvia to LA and then back to Latvia, right? Like, that's not possible. We know that was not filmed in actual real time, which frankly, I wish that they would have just been honest and been like, okay, so we're here. Chris Harrison could have introed it. We recorded this a few weeks after Latvia, and we're going to reflect on the season so far. Hannah's been media trained to not give away the end, right? She goes on all the talk shows. She knows how to dodge, and he's not going to ask her anything that's going to spoil the ending.
No.
So they could be transparent with us as viewers and say, this was recorded a little bit after, yada, 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 whatever. Yeah. But instead, it's like, do they think that we're that stupid that, like, they flew home to LA and then flew back? It was so dumb.
I just want to know what, like, production guys, like, yeah, this looks good. Let's edit this all together after a couple tequilas and just see if it works out for us. It doesn't make any sense. And then they proceed to waste all of our time for the rest of the episode. And there's no point in even recapping.
We're not recapping because just go listen to the past episodes.
Yeah, they just show some stuff that happened, and then they show some stuff that happened on the episode that we were watching in case you forgot what happened 20 minutes ago. Thanks for nothing. All of you, including Chris Harrison. Usually Chris Harrison adds value to the show. He removed value from this episode. I wrote down burnt time, Luke stuff, shoulder shrug. She says, how is this one guy ruining all of this for me? And I said, I wonder why.
There was a huge,
stupid, as
our awesome podcast colleagues at Huffington Post would say, there was a feminism fail, which is what they call them, at the end, towards the end of their interview.
Oh, God.
Hannah says to Chris, and like kind of to production, like you can tell she's like addressing the other people in the room. She goes, somebody needs to buy me a drink after this. And Chris Harrison says to her, hopefully you'll have a man to do that at the end of this. What?
Yeah, real bad.
We'll just leave that there. So then they keep like he says like, well, now, how do you feel now? And I wrote down, what the fuck is now? What, give us any frame of reference as to what now is.
He goes, what happens next?
And you're like, next from where? We don't know where you are now.
And they actually take the time to tease. He says, so what happens next? And she goes, and he's like, but we're going to show you one more blooper clip. They tease this question throughout all of the recaps of the episode we just watched. He keeps teasing, what's going to happen next? We're going to find out after this thing. What's going to happen next? I don't know. Let's find out. So he says, what happens next? Lead of the show that we're all watching. And she says, I don't know. Cool. So we just watched nothing for no reason.
And then they don't ever cut back to Latvia. We go straight into a sneak peek of the rest of this season on The Bachelorette.
Which they make hypersexual because I think someone with a brain at ABC was like, I bet we're going to lose some people over this. We got to sex it up real quick. Make sure we took the clip with Tyler with his shirt off immediately upon cutting back in because guess what sells? Guess what we're waiting for?
I mean, fuck, I'd much rather watch Tyler with his shirt off the whole time than Luke P doing this.
I would 100%
Like,
rather see Tyler than hear Luke for the rest of my life.
Oh, speaking of people with their shirts off, did you know, I forgot, I didn't tell you this. Did you know that Jed is a stripper in Nashville?
Why isn't that his thing on the show?
Yeah, it's one of his side gigs.
What?
Did you know that?
What? No. Why isn't that? Who cares about musician? Everyone who lives in Nashville is a musician.
Yeah.
But like, why was it like
he's a male dancer.
Why wasn't that his entire character?
I know.
We got Grant, who's unemployed, and then Jed's a musician, but actually a stripper. It's ridiculous.
I really want to see him dance now. I just want to see like Jed and Tyler dance. Okay. Anyway, now I'm going to stop objectifying the guys.
Or separately?
I don't care. So we see a sneak peek into the rest of the season, which unfortunately we see that Luke P does stay for some time. It's unclear, again, when this stuff happens, but it looks like they're in Greece together or something. So clearly he gets through Latvia. So this is what I wrote down about sneak peek for the rest of the season. So here's what you have to look forward to as well. Tyler and Hannah, massage, making out. Luke P in Greece, kissing a lot. She seems to be making out with Peter in a cave. Then she goes bungee jumping naked with Garrett, who I'm shocked lasts this long.
Which is, according to Luke, in the preview,
Luke says it's a slap in the face.
From both of them, which I thought was really, really entertaining.
Because, of course, it's still about Luke P. Because, great, we're still going to see this narcissistic abuser on TV for more.
Did he expect anything else? Like, do you think that he was like, hey, Garrett, can you just put some underwear on before you do this part of the date for my sake? Thanks.
So then we see this clip of Luke actually like screaming at Garrett. Garrett is in the clip. Garrett's sitting down and Luke is standing up over him, like pointing, screaming. So it appears as though we go back through the abuse cycle with Luke. If you're not familiar with the abuse cycle, it's when something bad happens, then they apologize, then they bring you a gift or something becomes really nice, and then things are good for a little while until it cycles back until something bad happens. And then they apologize, and then they bring you a gift, and then they're really nice for a while, and then it keeps going around.
Sounds like, what is that, a pattern? No, a cycle?
Yeah. So then Luke says to Hannah at a table on a date, this is what we were talking about. So let's talk about sex and how the marriage bed should be kept pure. This coming from the guy that when we first were introduced to on the show was saying how he slept with a shit ton of women until God talked to him in the shower.
Well, I mean, he wasn't married at
I
the
also
time.
just want to touch before. Oh, so then Hannah in the clip sends him in a black car, flips him off, and it appears as though he came back with a ring in the teaser.
Yeah,
we don't
Chris
really
is talking
know
to her. It looks like she's about to get proposed to, and he's like, he went and got a ring and came back, and she's like, oh my God. You know what I would really like? Can I share with you my wish for how that's going to go, even though I don't think that's what it's going to be?
Yeah.
Okay, so the reality of it is, it sounds like they're making it sound like Luke is going to come back with the ring after getting sent home for the third or second time or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. It creates tension. What I would love instead is if Cam comes back out of nowhere with a ring and he's like, I believe it now. Here's a 10, here's my huge story about all the things that happened to me that were bad between last time you saw me and now.
Oh my God.
I would love a huge twist like that, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get what I want, and we're going to get what the show wants.
I mean, I don't want what you want. That sounds horrible.
Would you? Okay, hold on. You would rather have...
No. I'm not saying I would rather have. I'm just saying I don't want that either.
Well, yeah, I don't want either to happen either, but I know it's going to happen, so I might as well put my own reality into it until I see it.
So...
What the fuck, man?
That's why we named the episode of The Right Reasons today, What the Fuck.
That's what WTF stands for, if you're unfamiliar with the term.
Yeah. The clip at the end is hilarious. Hannah is talking about the birds, and she says to stop cooing and cawing and mate already. And then she goes, it's like my guys. Stop cooing and cawing and try to mate with me. It was really funny.
She had a couple glasses of champagne before that one, I think.
Yeah.
I also followed up by laying on the ground chasing the birds.
Well, no, she fell on the ground.
Not a defense against the champagne argument.
So the one thing that I just wanted to acknowledge too, because we talked enough about this abusive behavior and production's responsibility and Chris Harrison's complicitness.
Yeah. Complicit nature.
Chris Harrison is complicit with production. He is an executive producer on the show.
That's not a word.
That is not
a
the
word.
word. There's been a lot of shame on the internet around Hannah's making out with the guys and how sexual she's being. For podcast listeners, I'm using air quotes.
It's sarcasm.
Stop shaming somebody for exploring their physical sexuality. Please. She is not doing anything wrong. I hated during the interview with Chris Harrison. He's like, so you've only made out with 5 people before this show? Who cares? Why does it matter how many people she has slept with, has made out with, has given a blowjob to? Why does this matter in our culture? Why do we make this such a big deal? Just let the woman make out with who she wants and enjoy her time on the show.
Well, remember, Colton wasn't a partner of value because he hadn't had sex yet, so we're making strides. It's not.
Again,
it's terrible.
It's sarcasm for podcast listeners.
Absolute bullshit.
So anyway.
Yeah, really left me not wanting to continue watching the season.
Yeah, it's hard because
Don't care.
I do care.
Well, I do care, but I don't care for the way that they're presenting this show and also the over-the-top Halo top ads.
Yeah.
That's not helpful either.
So we will be back next week. We are not going anywhere. We will continue watching.
Yep.
I hope that for Hannah's sake, she starts to production can help her see what's going on. I don't know how this will play out, but my gosh, please stop hating on Hannah. Support this woman. It has to be so hard to watch this back. And everybody, there are some threads on Reddit that are like, stop. You don't know what Luke P is going through watching this. He made these choices. She did not. She was under a different, again, yellow wall, right? Just be kind. And like, you don't even need to go out of your way to be rude to Luke P. Just like, don't engage. It's not worth it. He feeds off of it. These are real people. They're not characters. Yes, they're characterized on the show.
Yeah.
They are not characters. They're human beings. So that's all I got.
Yeah, we'll be back to do the next recap, and hopefully it's better.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one thing that right in the end I did catch in the preview of when Hannah was shouting about how she can do whatever she wants with her own body. She did say that, if I believe I'm quoting this correctly, and I can't wait for the episode actually to see it to make sure I do quote it correctly, the Lord made sex awesome, so like, why am I not supposed to go do that thing that the Lord made feel really, really great? Not an argument I can argue with. Or would I? Because that's, do whatever the fuck you want. Go have sex.
Yeah. Just be safe.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you for joining us. Please let us know what you think. I know that this is heavier than we ever expected
It's supposed to be having fun.
this to get. Like, but we're trying.
We're doing our best. Yeah, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit the little bell. Get notifications. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to our channel and or show channel.
And hit the thumbs up if you guys like this on YouTube. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. We'll see you in the comment section.
Bye.